first quarter of this year, we sold a little over $4 million of iPhone photography courses. We have over 400,000 paying customers. It wasn't like a smashing success from the start. There were many times when I wanted to quit, actually.
Tell me, what is the secret to your marketing? How you grew your Instagram to 1.4 million followers?
Yeah. This is why such a simple idea is so successful.
How did you came up with this just genius idea?
I made every possible mistake. My mom wasn't happy. She was like, oh, your friends are in Oxford and you're here doing this blog. A lot of money is not required for happiness.
How much do you work per week? Thailand was a turning point.
The company was the best marketing always wins. So marketing really is a lot about math and psychology.
Welcome to my channel. Here I share interviews with inspiring people, stories of my travel adventures, and talk about business and esoterics. My today's guest is Emils Pakarklis, the founder of iPhone Photography School, having $4 million revenue in the first quarter of 2023, having had more than 400,000 clients all around the world, and beating the record of Instagram followers in Latvia. Also having 35 plus employees, so let's hear this incredible story of Emils.
My today's guest is Emils Pakarklis, who is founder and creative director of iPhone Photography School. I'm very happy and honored to take interview from you today, because I remember when I met you the first time, your story, how you founded this company was so impressive to me, and it's actually a big luck for me and our viewers to hear how it was.
But thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Cool, cool. Could you maybe share, so where is your company at right now? Some numbers?
Yes, of course. So we are the world's leading provider of mobile photography education. So I've been doing this business for about 10 years now, and we have over 400,000 paying customers. And in terms of revenue, in the first quarter of this year, we sold a little over $4 million of iPhone photography courses.
Wow. Okay. So you started 10 years ago. And could you share how did it all started, where the idea came from, and yeah.
Okay, so it's a bit of a strange story, because people somehow usually assume that I was always a photographer, or that I had this mission or purpose to share that with the world, but the purpose was very simple. I wanted to make some money. And I was a university student at the time, and I knew that, starting from high school, I went to a selective high school, and they were always pushing us, you go graduate from university, then you get your master's. After that, you go work for a big four, you sell your soul to a big bank or an accounting firm, and then you're happy. And that was the vision that was always kind of given to me, but it didn't sound right to me. It just didn't seem like that would be the kind of thing that would make me happy. So from an early age, already in high school and especially in university, I was thinking about, okay, how can I do things differently? How could I make some money on the side? And I was learning a lot about online business, about just different ways to make money online. And during that time, common advice I read was that I needed to start a website. And what do you start a website on? It should be something you're passionate about. And during that time, I had just bought an iPhone 4S, and I was really happy. I really loved the phone. I still love the phones, but not as much as I did back then. And I thought, okay, well, what am I passionate about? It's the iPhone, right? And but I knew I couldn't write about the iPhone. It just seemed like that would be the kind of topic that's covered enough by all the big tech websites, which were at a very high level. And I'm just a university student, sitting in my dorm room. So what could I do? And then I decided, okay, I need to niche down, maybe pick like a narrower topic. And that was the first iPhone that actually came with an 8 megapixel camera. And I thought, okay, there's something. And I had this kind of an idea or a dream that it would be nice to learn photography, but I knew literally nothing at all about photography, zero experience. But I thought, okay, iPhone, photography, maybe I can put these two together, because my idea at the time was that the cameras would get better over time, and maybe, who knows, some years down the line, most people wouldn't be carrying a separate camera with them because the phone would be good enough. That turned out to be true, of course. And yeah, so then I bought a domain name called iPhone Photography School, and I was probably not qualified to buy a domain name called a school on a topic I knew nothing about, but I did anyway. And yeah, so what I started doing was just learning photography, and I would, read something in a book or maybe watch some online tutorials. Then I'd go out, shoot, practice, make all the mistakes. A lot of things didn't work out. Some pictures did work out, and then I'd come back home and I'd write a blog article. And essentially I'd write about what I learned as if I was a teacher. So, they say that the best way to learn something is to teach it. And that's more or less how I got started. So it wasn't like a smashing success from the start. There was a long time period where not much happened, actually. But then about a year in, or a little bit more than a year in, I had actually abandoned the project for some time already. I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. But I had some, I don't know, maybe 20 articles up on the website. And I started noticing that people were starting to visit the site. I'd get maybe like 20 a day, 30 a day. Then next month it would be like 60 a day. I'm like, that's some people already. And then I'd start writing again. Then it would be like 100 a day, 200. And it was a very opportunistic moment in time because the whole concept of iPhone photography was new. Like if you went to Google and searched for some kind of iPhone camera tips, advice, settings, whatever, there wasn't much information to be found because that whole idea of iPhone and photography together, that was so new, but the demand for that was growing rapidly. So it just kind of happened to be at the right place in the right time with my website, and the traffic just kept growing. And one thing led to another. I started an email newsletter, built some subscribers, and then comes the Thailand story, I guess.
Okay, but so basically you jumped into the new trend basically of shooting with iPhone,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
How do you think, was it just luck for you, or how did you came up with this just genius idea?
There's some element of luck involved. That is a fact, but back then I already suspected that, okay, each new generation of the phone would have a better and better camera. And, this was like a bit more than 10 years ago, actually, like 2011, I think, was when I first started or bought a domain name. And during that time, it was common for people to have like a fairly basic cell phone. Some people had iPhones, most people didn't. And it was also common to have the separate point and shoot type of digital camera, which you'd carry around, you'd have a memory card in it, and so on. So now these days they don't exist anymore, pretty much. Like you either have a fairly professional camera or you have the phone, but there's no in-between category. And yeah, I thought that this would probably happen, that the phones would eventually get good enough that most people wouldn't need a separate camera, which is obviously the reality we live in today. But what I didn't exactly predict was that the iPhone would also keep growing. So back when I started, I think there were maybe 10 times less iPhone users globally than there are now. So there are over 1 billion active iPhone devices out there in the wild being used today. And that's a huge, huge market. But back then it wasn't as big. It was an innovative product. Everyone knew what the iPhone was, but it was still kind of frowned upon. People were kind of making fun of it, this overpriced, silly thing type. And I didn't really know that it would grow to become so huge and essentially take over the world. And then how Instagram and social media would become everyone's obsession, and both in a good way and in a bad way. Like some of those trends weren't clear to me at the time. But the main trend that the cameras would get better, that seemed obvious.
Okay. What was the year you started doing it?
I bought the domain name in 2011, summer of 2011.
Yeah.
I think I wrote some articles that summer, and I think I wrote about 20 or so, and then I more or less gave up for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then in 2012, at some point I started noticing that the traffic started to take off, and then I was like, okay, there's something to it. And by the way, what happens is if you start a new website, it takes quite some time until Google even considers that to be a real website, because Google is so used to seeing websites come and go. And if you just started it now, there's going to be, I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe up to a year, when Google doesn't give you almost any traffic. And I kind of went through that, but then maybe a year later, Google saw that, oh, the website's still running. Okay, let's give this guy some traffic, and that's more or less what happened.
Okay, that was 2011, 12?
Well, I bought the domain name in 2011. some traffic started coming in 2012.
Okay.
So not an immediate success story. There's still some time until it started to make money, but yeah.
And then came the Thailand part, yeah?
So the Thailand part, that actually happened, if I get the years right, in 2013, yeah. So essentially I graduated from university in summer 2012, and it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And by that point, I think the website was just making about $1,000 a month, more or less, if I really pushed it. And I thought,
how did you monetize it?
At first, I monetized it through affiliate sales. So essentially, there were some other courses about iPhone photography out there, as well as some physical products, and I would essentially promote those both through articles, like links in the articles on the website, as well as sometimes sending promotions to the mailing list. And it was tough because I had to keep promoting just to make that, $1,000. But I'd worked during the university, I worked 2 jobs. One was a dishwasher, the other one was customer support call center. So nothing too fancy. This was in the Netherlands. So at least they paid well. And I saved up a bit of money, and I was like, okay, if I could just, make a bit of money here from this iPhone photography thing, who knows? Maybe I don't have to go get a job. And my mom wasn't happy. She was like, oh, your friends are in Oxford and you're here doing this blog? and I was like, no, I don't want to get a master's. I don't want to study. I want to do business. And it didn't seem like business at the time, because it's like just me sitting in a room writing some blog about this very strange, obscure niche topic. And today it's like obvious, iPhone photography, sure, everyone takes photos with the iPhone. But back then it was a very kind of novel, unexpected idea,
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like, what is he even doing with his life? Like, he's talented. Why are you wasting your life away?
Yeah. So you had big faith in yourself.
Just like a rebel spirit, I'd say. Maybe a bit of faith, but no, I didn't have this like grand vision or this clear path. Like, it wasn't like I knew I'd be successful. No. I dreamed about it maybe, but I just didn't want the other alternative. I guess that's what it was.
So you were motivated by the fact that you didn't want to work like in corporate job,
or go study a master's. So I was motivated by essentially freedom, and of course, then if you fast forward that to a few years later, I ended up working more than I would have had to work in those corporate jobs. But and that usually happens in business. You get into it to get away from, I don't know, responsibility or schedule or whatever, and then you just get a worse schedule, which happened to me for many years as well. So that's fairly typical.
Okay, but let's go back to the Thailand story. So when did you go to Thailand, and what happened there?
Okay, so this was about 2 years into the project already, so I'd graduated from university. I'd been living in Latvia for some time. It was winter, it's how winter is in Latvia, right? Best to go away if you can. And what happened was that it felt a bit lonely to be doing this thing on my own in Latvia when everyone else is either studying somewhere or working, and I'm just doing this kind of blogging thing, which nobody understands. And I thought, okay, well, there are other people doing this type of thing, and a lot of them, and that, the whole digital nomad thing was just starting to become popular. And there were a lot of other people doing this in different parts of the world, and a lot of them ended up going to Thailand and to Chiang Mai specifically. And Chiang Mai it's not by the sea, but it's a beautiful city in the north of Thailand, and it had and probably still has actually relatively cheap cost of living, even for Thailand's standards. And I thought, okay, the weather is good, the internet is fast, it's going to be cheap to live there, and let's go there and let's see if I can meet other like-minded people. Maybe meet some friends, find a bit of a community. So that's what I was thinking, and so I did. I packed my bags, went there, and what happened was that the very first person I met in Thailand ended up becoming my business mentor, actually. So that was very fortunate. I had this kind of intention to go there and meet like-minded people, and I did. And literally on day one, the first person I spoke to, he owned a co-working space in Thailand. But it turned out that he wasn't just like a from the co-working space, he was also a highly experienced online marketer. So he had done multiple $1 million online marketing launches, and that was just like wow to me. And you know, we kind of got connected. I showed him what I was doing, and he said like, well, you've done the hard work. You've built an audience. You have a mailing list, and back then the mailing list was, I think, like maybe 7,500 subscribers, something like that. And he said, okay, you've done all the hard work. The vast majority of people I speak to haven't made it this far. Now you just need to start selling a course. Like you just need to monetize, and that's the last thing you need to do. I was like, well, yeah, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about writing an ebook and so on. And I think in 6 months I'll have the book or something like that. That's what I told him. And he said, no, that's not how you do it. You sell the program now, and only if there's enough demand, then you actually make it. And I was like, well, wait, I can't sell what I don't have. Well, he said, no, you just make the marketing materials. You kind of decide what's the minimum amount of sales you want to make for it to be worth your time. And then if it sells, if it's successful, you're going to make it. Otherwise, what if you make this thing for the next 6 months and nobody buys it, which actually happens a lot in business. People get really attached to their idea. They think it's going to be amazing, but then when it's put out there in the world, no one buys it. Happens all the time. So yeah, I thought this was like the worst idea ever, like probably illegal and so on, but I decided to try it, and I was like, okay, well, maybe he's right. And so I did, and I put together some marketing materials over the next two or 3 weeks. And I was studying the methodology of Jeff Walker. So he has a book called Launch, as well as some online courses called Product Launch Formula. And I more or less took his methodology and exactly implemented it in iPhone photography school. And it turned out to be a good methodology in terms of marketing principles. And so when I did launch the course, unexpectedly to me, within 5 days when the course was available for sale, it sold $22,000, which was the most ridiculous amount of money to me. I literally couldn't believe my eyes. And yeah, then I had to make the course. But right then and there, I knew, okay, this thing works, and probably life's never going to be the same again. And that's what happened.
Wow. Okay. So Thailand was the turning point.
It was. And there was this first campaign, which was unexpectedly successful, which I was really happy about. But also, we stayed in touch with the guy. I lived there for about 6 months, and he actually became a bit of a daily coach and mentor to me. We were also arguing about iPhone all the time. He thought it was shit. I thought it was amazing. So it was a very funny mentoring relationship. But I think, and this is a great advice for anyone seeking a mentor, is to actually go and implement and do what they tell you to do. Because he was at a stage in his life where he was happy to actually provide some advice and to give back to younger people, and he had done it many times before, and every time he'd give his advice, he'd think through the strategy, he'd lay it all out for people, and nobody would do anything, right? And I think what he liked about me was that I was different. I'd take what he told me, and I'd sit there in the coffee shop until late at night and just get it done. And I think that's why he was so happy to mentor me, because he knew that this wasn't for nothing, that this guy was actually going to use this information. But yeah, to answer your question, the Thailand trip was kind of a pivotal moment. And after that, what was this little hobby project essentially became a business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what happened next? You started launching this course again and again?
Yes, I started launching it again and again. I think I implemented an ongoing launch campaign where it would happen every week. And later on, I think I automated it further. But yeah, so that happened. I had to make the course, and when people logged in first, there was just like a video that said, "Hey, the course starts next week on Monday," and that was it. Literally, you log in, you get your password, and there's like a video of me saying, "Hey, welcome, thank you. We'll start on Monday next week." And so every day I had to make a video, and this was for like 7 weeks, and that was a lot of work, but it was worth doing it because I knew that there were these customers who had paid me all this money, so I kind of had no choice, right? And what happened then was that I realized, okay, well, now I have some extra money, which I never had before, but I have less and less time. I have to make a video every day, And then there would be customer support requests. I'm writing marketing emails, writing new articles for the website. It was just a lot to do. And then I thought, okay, well, I guess it's time to start to hire some help. And so I did. The first person I hired, she's still with us today, actually. It's like, many years later. And she started writing articles for the blog. And with her writing and her consistency, because that was her job to write these articles, we were able to grow the blog into a fairly significant traffic source. I wouldn't tell you today's numbers, honestly, because we're now putting less emphasis on SEO traffic, but there was a long period of time where we were consistently getting about 1 million visitors a month from Google because of her work. And again, because I had this extra money coming into the company, I could hire her. She could focus on the writing while I could focus on the marketing, the course, and so on. And that just worked, and the business kept growing. And a few months later, I hired someone for customer support. And she's also still with us today, an amazing woman from the Philippines. And honestly, looking back, I think I was lucky with those two hires because they turned out to be exceptionally good. Because after that, I had many not so great hiring experiences. And if I now look back and think, okay, had things happened in a different order, who knows, maybe I would have given up. But I was very lucky with the first two people I hired.
And so for the first years, you were like basically solo entrepreneur. And then you started hiring people. And how many employees do you have right now?
Well, currently there's approximately 35 of us working full-time. And then we have many more freelancers in different roles for different projects. There are people making reels for social media around the world. We have cameramen who come in for projects. We have course experts. We're working with some freelance developers in addition to the in-house development team. So I actually don't know. I think there's about 35 of us full-time.
Okay. It's also fascinating how you started this business 10 years ago, and even right now you're sort of offering the similar program. Nothing has changed drastically, right? Or maybe you can elaborate what has changed, what has evolved in the programs you offer.
So the core program is still called iPhone Photo Academy, but in this time we're now on version 3, so every few years, enough things changed in the iPhone camera where it's just time to upgrade. And actually, the first version of the course was kind of embarrassing. I essentially made PowerPoint presentations and talked over them, showed some pictures in them, talked about the pictures. I did some screen recordings of the iPhone, which was probably the most interactive part of it. But that was it. That was like a one-man show. Then for version 2, I hired a camera guy. That was a big upgrade. So instead of me sitting in a room by a computer talking over a slideshow, we were now actually going into the field. And there was a guy filming me as I'm taking pictures, which was actually a big step forward at the time. For version 3, we had many cameramen, probably the best in the country. And so one thing that changed and that continues to evolve is the quality of these courses. The other thing is we have a lot more products now. So in online business and in business in general, whenever you're selling online, but really this is true for all companies, the biggest cost is usually acquiring the customer for the first time. So once you have that customer, selling additional products, like more courses, more products, more services, that's much easier usually because number one, there's that relationship already established, but also the cost of that additional sale is much lower. So to find the first customer, we run Facebook ads, and actually we usually lose a little bit of money on that first purchase just to get that customer. But once the customer is in, we can then offer additional products through email marketing, through upsells, and so on. And these additional product sales are actually what makes all the money. Without them, the business couldn't exist. So we have 6 iPhone photography courses. The 7th one is coming out, I think, in about a week. We also have a smaller brand called Photography Pro that's about taking photos with big cameras. We have 3 courses there. That hasn't been as successful, and it's honestly less of a focus for us at the moment, but we have that brand as well. And we're also working on some more innovative ideas using artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and so on. So we have a bit of a R&D lab in a sense where we're trying to, the goal is to essentially make our courses redundant with technology before someone else does it.
Let's talk more about marketing. I know that for you, marketing is basically as important as the product itself.
No,
Without marketing,
you got it wrong. It's more important.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is the secret to your marketing? How you grew your Instagram to 1.4 million followers? I think it's pretty impressive.
Well, the Instagram story is simple, but maybe I'll start with the overall approach to marketing. People in business, and this is true for small and medium-sized businesses. For the largest companies in the world, the rules are slightly different. But I don't think the people listening to this are currently running the largest companies in the world. They're thinking about how to start their own business. And for anyone in this position, or maybe if you have a business and you want to grow it, take it to the next level, there's this important rule that the success of the company, the success of the business does not depend on the quality of the product. It depends on the quality of the marketing and only on that. It's a bit controversial. People usually don't understand this straight away, and then I have to do more explaining, so I'll try to do that. But essentially, good marketing or great marketing can easily sell a product that doesn't exist. My story proves that, right? My product didn't exist, and it sold in that first campaign spectacularly well. The product wasn't even there, but the marketing was good, and it worked. And then I had the money, and I had the motivation to make the product. Whereas, imagine the opposite scenario. Let's say the marketing wasn't good. I hadn't studied Jeff Walker. I didn't use psychological influence techniques. I just kind of put it out there and said, okay, there's this website on the internet. Someone goes there, they can buy this course. And let's say I invested years of my life into making the absolute perfect course, right? Obviously, no one would buy it. So which one is more important? It's the marketing. And there's this kind of saying, build it and they'll come. And no, they won't come. You can build this amazing website or social profile or whatever. No one's going to come unless you consciously think about marketing all the time when you're running the business. And so what is marketing actually? And to me, it's very simple. It's attracting, keeping, and directing people's attention towards a sale. That's marketing. And I guess the other thing is that in small to medium-sized businesses, the company with the best marketing always wins. And when I mean the best marketing, I don't mean like the fanciest graphics or the most beautiful imagery. I mean, these things are nice, but they're just nice to haves. The branding is actually far less important than the conversion-driven marketing. So when I say the best marketing here, what I mean is the marketing that generates the most money per click or per visitor or per email subscriber, per follower, and so on. So it's all about how do you get the most dollars out of each visitor or out of each email subscriber and so on. That is literally the purpose of marketing. And to do that, well, first of all, you have to study things like copywriting, direct response copywriting specifically. And with copywriting, you got to be careful because there's the kind of fancy, nice sounding, cool, stylish slogan type of copywriting, and that's good for Coca-Cola or Nike maybe, but it's not going to be good for you. You need a kind of copywriting that sells, and that writing is all about what's in it for the customer. So when the person visits your site, the first thing you should answer to them is what's in it for me, and if there's nothing, they're not going to stick around. Same goes for any videos, ads, TikToks, Reels, whatever. The first thing that people want to know is what's in it for me. And if there's no clear answer to that, they're going to move on. The other thing about marketing is there are a lot of psychological influence techniques, and they work. And if you don't use them, your conversion rate is never going to be as high. But it's important to study psychology, and specifically sales and persuasion psychology, as a part of good marketing. And copywriting goes together with that if it's done correctly. So the reason this is so important is that, let's say I want to buy ads for the business, right? The ads on any advertising platform, and let's use Facebook and Instagram because that's the one where we actually sell the most, they're sold in an auction. So what this means is that all the advertisers around the world are competing for which ad to show you next. They know, okay, Samantha is on Facebook, there's an ad slot. Who's going to get to show that ad to her? Whoever pays the most to show an ad to Samantha. That's essentially the way it works. And so who can afford to pay the most? The person who's going to make the most money from your attention, right? From you seeing the ad, from you clicking through, from you buying, or people like you buying at a higher rate. And if you're not competitive in this sense, there's another company or many other companies whose ads are going to generate more money per view, they're going to buy up all that advertising space because the ads are sold in an auction, and they're just going to pay more, and your ad's not going to get shown. Their ad will be. Of course, you could go ahead and pay more, but if your marketing is not good enough, you'll be losing money while they'll be making money. So even tiny differences in conversion rate of the sales page make huge differences in advertising. And if this part of the marketing is competitive, then all of a sudden it becomes cost effective to run ads. So people sometimes think of marketing like, oh, there's this marketing budget. We'll do 10% of our revenue to advertising or marketing. And that's a mistake. The marketing should work. If it's losing money, then maybe it's not so good marketing. But if it works, then you'd spend all your money on it, right? And that's more or less the approach we've taken. We optimize the marketing funnel to the best of our ability, and we spend as much money as possible on these ads. And currently we're spending about $25,000, $27,000 a day on this advertising. And that is how we grew the Instagram account as well. We don't promote the Instagram account directly. We promote the product. But through the ad, there's also a link to the Instagram account. And some people click through, and that's how we got most of the followers. The other thing that's worked for that is Reels as well. So we post a lot of Reels, and they tend to get a lot of organic views. But yeah, the fundamental thing is all about the conversion rate and how well your marketing converts. If it converts well, you can make money. And the same is true for any traffic source, by the way. It's not just ads. Let's say you're going to work with affiliates. What do the affiliates want? They want to make money, right? So then what does it mean? Well, there are two products, and let's say they send 1,000 people to one product, 1,000 people to the other one. They're going to want to keep promoting. Well, of course, they're going to want to make sure that the product is somewhat good, but really they're going to want to keep promoting the product that makes them the most money. A versus B, which website? The one that makes us more money. That's the one they're going to promote. Or let's say you're going to do social media. You're just going to grow organically, or SEO. You don't believe in advertising. That's fine. Now there are two companies, and one of them can make more money per follower or per visitor from SEO, and the other one makes less. Well, the one that makes more money can hire better people. They can invest more money into SEO. They can have better, more frequent social media content, and that company is still going to win. So always, 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 the company with the best marketing wins, and the best marketing is the one that converts the best. This is so important. If you take one thing away from this, this can literally change your life. And I tell this to people all the time. They're like, yeah, what is he talking about? But this changes everything. This is why such a simple idea is so successful for us at iPhone Photography School. So
because you take marketing very seriously, right?
Yes.
It's a big numbers game.
It is absolutely a numbers game. And here's the funny thing. There are a lot of these little conversion points in the typical marketing flow. So let's say a person is scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, and they're going quickly. Everyone is, right? And there's an ad, you usually just scroll right past it, right? But then some ads will catch your attention. You'll stop for a moment. That's a conversion point. Depending on what you show on that first screen, fewer or more people will stop scrolling just because you caught their attention. Marketing is all about catching, keeping, and directing people's attention, right? So the first goal should be to actually catch their attention. Then they can choose to keep watching, or they maybe just drop out after 3 or 5 seconds. Okay, that's another conversion point. Then at the end of the ad, there's a call to action, and there should always be call to actions in ads, which is where you tell people what to do next. And they may choose to, and that's usually going to be visit the sales page. So they may choose to visit the sales page or not. Then they get to the sales page. A lot of people just click back immediately. They bounce, right? But some people stay on the sales page because the headline perhaps intrigued them. Okay, that's a conversion point. Then people start scrolling. A lot of people might not get to this buy button. Some people will. Conversion point. Then out of those who see the buy button, some people will click on it, others won't. Conversion point. Then some people will fill out the checkout form, others won't. If you're asking for 20 different fields, like address for a digital product, don't do that, Fewer people will fill out the form. But these are all conversion points. So I just named 5, 6 or something. Now let's say you found a way to improve each of them by 20%, you know? Let's say there are 5 conversion points and you can improve each by 20%. You didn't increase the overall performance by 100%. They're all multiplied together. So you take 1.2 to the power of 5, and I don't know what that is, but it's going to be more like 2.5 or something approximately. So the point is all these conversion points get multiplied together, and if you can improve all of them, you actually grow exponentially in terms of how much money you can make per visitor. And then the best part comes afterwards. Now, because you have a better conversion process, you don't just, let's say I improved everything 2.5 times. The business isn't going to make 2.5 times more money. It's going to make 10 times more money because all of a sudden we can afford to buy all the traffic that we couldn't afford to buy previously. So these little incremental improvements in marketing make all the difference, really. And this is the way to think about marketing. So marketing really is a lot about math and psychology. You know, how you use human psychology to get the most revenue per visitor. And if that math works, the business is successful. If it doesn't work, you'll always be struggling. That's the reality.
Okay, so one thing was marketing that really, of course, helped to grow your business. But I think the second thing is you, like as a founder. And maybe you could share what was the mindset, your thoughts that didn't let you to give up or to continue growing further, not being afraid to scale it to the whole world. What was your thought pattern?
It's interesting. A good question, because from what I've seen, and this isn't so much about me, even though I think it also applies to me, but from what I've seen, you know, talking to a lot of people over the years, and you know, I know a lot of very successful people, more successful than me, and then I know a lot of really smart people, much smarter than me. But it's usually not the same people. Those are usually two different groups of people. So why is that? And I think a lot of business success just comes down to personality. And usually, well, first of all, the people who are most successful, they're absolutely fearless. They, like, fear is not a big thing for them. They'll just, or if they are scared, they'll just do it anyway. But it's usually a crazy personality, really, or let's call it unusual. So no, I don't want everyone to think I'm crazy, but it's those people are different. They think differently. They're usually not afraid of things. They're not less afraid of failure, less afraid of what other people are going to think, and they have this crazy bias towards action. So, you know, if you tell a good entrepreneur an idea and he's like, "Yes, that's a great idea," the next day the implementation process will have started. Whereas if you tell someone else an idea, they're like, "Oh, that's a brilliant idea," and nothing happens ever, right? But really, I think it's the boldest people, the most fearless people who tend to succeed in business. Also, another thing I've seen is that maybe people who have emotional trauma of some kind, they tend to succeed at a higher rate than those who don't, actually, because there's this hole they're trying to fill, in a sense. I've seen this repeatedly as well. Because business is hard, and there are going to be the kind of hardships that would not be, that most people couldn't even imagine, and just a lot of things are going to go wrong. And so also persistence, obviously, you know, persistence in the face of difficulty, just, you know, persistence over long periods of time, consistency, those things help too. But yeah, usually to really succeed at business, there has to be this crazy burning desire to be successful. And if you're like comfortable, if everything is good, if you're happy, content, if you meditate a lot, then everything is great. I'm not saying meditation is bad, that's not the point. But if everything is amazing in your life, you're very unlikely to succeed as an entrepreneur, I think.
Okay, and these qualities, did they come to you naturally or you developed them?
You mean the trauma?
Not the trauma, but like persistence, fearlessness, not giving up, acting right away, or who helped you? Or was that mentor? Maybe some book also?
No, there's no book. I think it's more of a natural personality thing for me personally. It's probably possible to develop these qualities, or at least improve them. So it's not like if you're, like, don't get me wrong, it's not like if you don't have these qualities, you can't succeed. But it will probably mean that you need to reflect on, you know, how you make certain decisions, and perhaps try to compensate for that rationally, because, you know, okay, maybe I'm a bit too timid, maybe I'm too fearful, maybe I don't take action fast enough, maybe I don't work hard enough. But I think it's more of a natural thing to me. I know my mom was was always pushing me very hard, and there are good sides to it and bad sides to it, but probably in terms of business success, it helped a lot as well.
And so your case was that you had this burning desire to earn a lot of money, to be successful, right?
My biggest motivation was actually freedom, as I told you at the start. But a lot of money sounded nice too, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just saying this. It's like even I just caught myself almost feeling uncomfortable about
Really?
it. But why? Right? It doesn't make sense, because all money that's earned ethically is a byproduct of value creation.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally value yes, I have a lot of money, but it's value I've created to the society. I've helped over 400,000 people improve their photography. That's a lot of people. And yes, it's not a life-changing difference for most of them, but still, it's something of value I've given to all these people, and they've paid me back, and then I've paid all the salaries. I've paid Mark Zuckerberg a ridiculous amount of money for advertising for the value he created. And then the money I'm left with is the money I've honestly earned, and that's left over. So there's nothing I should be ashamed of, and yet it doesn't necessarily feel comfortable for people to want money. It's like, oh, money is like something you stole from the government. No, that doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. So basically you made your dream come true. Now you're successful, you earn a lot of money. So how do you feel now when your goal is achieved? Didn't you have this moment that you feel empty, that you don't know where to go next? Like, tell me how it is, like, when something so big comes true.
I had this moment for a while where I was like, okay, I could retire if I wanted to, and what was the point of it all, and so on. I had those doubts some time ago, then I kind of dropped them. But how is it? It becomes more of a game. It's like, do I absolutely need to earn more and grow the business or so on? No. Do I want to? Yeah, that'll be fun. I think I've developed a bit of a detachment to all these things, and it's a very privileged place to be in. I realize that, but it's like it becomes like a bit of like a computer game in a sense. Like, you still play it to win, but if you lose in a computer game, it's like whatever. And this actually allows, in a way, it allows me to become even bolder, even kind of take more risks and so on, because I know that if this project fails, or if something doesn't pan out exactly as I intended, it actually is not going to change, how I spend my life to tomorrow or anything in a direct way. So it all becomes like this game I'm slightly detached from, and that's cool actually, because I still play the game to win, even if it doesn't matter, and it does matter. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but even if it didn't matter, I'd still want to play a game to win, right? And business is a bit like that now.
Also, the question, how do you think does your happiness levels correlate with your business success levels?
That's a good one. I think they correlate more with other aspects of life. I think the quality of social life, the people around you, would be something, relationships with other people. I think that's the biggest correlate to happiness, at least from my experience, and I think psychological studies tend to confirm that. Whereas business success, if things are going terribly, then that's going to wear you down, obviously. If there's a big problem you're worried about all the time, that's going to be a problem. But to say that you become happier when you're rich, I don't think that's the case. It can be the case, but it's not guaranteed automatically. And in fact, there were many years where, I had more money, but I was also working so hard, and maybe I was neglecting my health a bit. Maybe the social life wasn't where I'd like it to be. And actually, even though I was successful at work, I actually felt less happy than I did, all those years back in university when I had nothing. So I've had that experience too. And I think it would be a mistake to somehow believe that money will buy you happiness, but it will buy you a lot of other things, including respect from other people, which can contribute. It's true. I'm sorry for saying this, but like, if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't made all like the business so successful. That's just the reality. And so there are a lot of benefits from it. Some drawbacks too. The biggest drawback, I'd say, is there can be a sense of distance from other people, where they look at you as this successful thing up here that's just so different, and sometimes it may even make other people just feel comfortable, or maybe they look at you and then they compare themselves to you, and then they feel worse, and then they don't want to hang out with you. Like, I've had those things happen.
Wow.
It's but of course not everyone is like that, and you also get to meet the kind of people you'd not meet otherwise, perhaps. So there are a lot of pros and cons, but I think it would be a mistake to assume that you need, or you definitely don't need a lot of money to be happy. Like, yes, you need food and shelter and some clothing and a bit of leftover for fun, but really a lot of money is not required for happiness. I don't think that's the case.
Could you share some of your most difficult moments in business? Maybe you even wanted to quit it once or something, and tell, what were those moments and how you recovered from them?
Well, many times. There were many times when I wanted to quit, actually. I'm glad I didn't, but I mean, I don't want to go into specifics because there are other people involved in the most difficult situations I've had, and I just don't want to make certain things public in the sense that, what if they're listening or so on. But something that was difficult for me naturally was actually working with other people, and I'm a bit more of a numbers guy in a sense where like things like math and and more kind of analytical subjects would come more naturally to me, whereas understanding how to lead a team successfully wasn't something I was born with. And yes, it is a skill that can be learned. Of course it is. But I'd say a lot of times my problems came from unrealistic expectations of other people, because I would hire someone and I'd just expect them to be good at everything straight away or something like that, and then they wouldn't be, and then I'd get pissed off, and then they'd see me not being happy with their performance, and maybe some negative tension would develop, and so on. So I've had actually a lot of those experiences, especially early on in my career. Now it's much less of a problem for several reasons. Number one is I made every possible mistake, and then I kept reflecting on them. And after I made the same mistakes 2 or 3 times, I was like, okay, maybe there's a pattern there. Maybe this is not how it works. And so a lot of these things I actually learned the hard way. Another thing that actually helped a lot for me is that now there's a CEO for the company, and he actually takes care of the day-to-day operations and makes sure that everything runs. And for most situations, for most people in the company, he's the first go-to person in the sense that if they have a problem. And there's still a lot of people I work with very closely on a day-to-day basis, but essentially he takes some of that off my shoulders, so I can focus more on ideas and creative things and concepts and just doing the things that I do best. So that's another thing that helped me. But yeah, I'd say there were a lot of difficulties with people, with employees early on, and I just wasn't the best at managing them. I was better at doing things myself, and for a long time I thought, okay, if something needs to get done right, then I'm the only person who can do it. And that mindset also held me back for a long time, because you can't grow a business if you insist on doing everything yourself or doing everything better than others. So that was a big mistake that I was struggling with for a long time. And yeah, but the good thing is, that, as I said, through making every possible mistake and over the years, I became wiser in terms of how to work with other people, how to lead them, what I can expect of them, what kind of feedback to provide, when to provide it, and now it's actually much easier. But it was a difficult journey for me.
Mm-hmm. And to summarize your journey on people management, can you give some advice to me or to someone else how to manage the team in the most effective way?
Okay, so I think the biggest mistake people make is assuming that everyone's like them. And if you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're more ambitious, perhaps more creative. You probably have a wider set of talents than most people, and that's good. That's what makes you the entrepreneur. That's why you're doing this, and that's why you can become successful through your work. But the mistake is to assume that everyone else is going to be like that. And people aren't. People are so different. And the one thing that really helps is understanding, well, number one, that people are different, how they're different, and then knowing your team or the people you work with and just understanding, okay, what are everyone's strengths and weaknesses? What is their personality like? At what kind of tasks are they more likely to succeed? Where are they likely to fail? And then to structure the team and the projects in such a way that's most likely to lead to success. And like early on in my career, my thinking about this wasn't as nuanced. So I would think that they're either good workers or bad workers, but it sounds so stupid to me now. But it's like, oh, this is a good employee, this is a bad employee. But usually it's a lot more nuanced than that. The same person could be an amazing, exceptionally good employee in one situation, and then you put that person in the wrong situation, or you have the wrong expectations of them, and they become absolutely incompetent. And this can be the same person. The problem, though, is usually that if you put them in a situation of incompetence, it becomes harder to recover from that. So it's best not to let those things develop too far. But yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is understanding other people and what are everyone's strengths and weaknesses. And, to give some examples, I suppose, they're just like, one is about creative thinking versus, how to say this correctly, I suppose it's called linear versus lateral thinking. So linear thinking would be where if you give that person a detailed process and a checklist, they'll execute it flawlessly, no mistakes, perfect every time. And early on in my career, I was very happy to work with these people because they got it right. I told them exactly what to do, and they did exactly that. I was so happy, right? And then there would be those creative people who would just never stick to the process, always do things their own way, and so on. But the problem is that the linear thinkers, they're usually not the most creative. And that means that if you give that person like a project that they need to manage by themselves, or maybe like a problem they've never encountered before, they're usually just not going to know what to do. So for that, you need a more creative person. Whereas the creative person, if they have to go through the same process day after day after day, they're going to hate their job. Mm-hmm. They're going to feel miserable doing it. They're not going to like it. So that would be one thing. The linear thinkers tend to have a lot more attention to detail than the creative people. And there are some people who have all of it, so there can be some exceptions to this, but usually people are on one side or the other of this spectrum. Then there are people who, there are many other character traits, really. There are hardworking people and there are lazy people, let's be real. You want to work with the hardworking ones, but obviously if someone isn't as inclined to work as hard, then there can be management structures in place, such as deadlines, objectives, KPIs, and so on. That can help bring people up to performance. There's just a lot of variety in terms of how people work. There are people with strong analytical skills, people who rely on logic heavily when they think, and there are people who rely on intuition, and mm-hmm. that's different. And also, a lot of times, the people who are more logical in their thinking, they're usually not the best at the creative or the visual aspects of the business, from my experience. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot of things to consider. And I think you develop a feel for this over time, or maybe if you're highly intuitive, you have that feel for this straight away. That's possible. But you have to put the right person in the right roles. And then there are the people who are not right for the project, or perhaps for your company at this stage, or perhaps ever. And then you have to let those people go. And it's important, like, you don't want to be cruel or heartless or anything like that, but if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit, and you're not doing anyone a favor if you keep them. And I guess the last advice is just to work with the best people you can, the smartest, the most talented, the most capable. If you just, put out a job ad, get 5 candidates, pick one, and that's going to be your person, that's not as likely to succeed. So I'd recommend either getting a lot of applications, hundreds and hundreds, and finding a way to screen people, perhaps through some kind of a test that they do, and the test should be the kind of work they'd be doing, and then you can pick the best one for the job. Or better yet, you go out there, you look in the world at, okay, let's say I need a developer maybe. So if you have that skill, you go on GitHub and you see who's writing good code and making contributions, or maybe you need a social media manager. Well, then you go out there and look at companies whose social media you think is managed exceptionally well, and you reach out. And that's the other thing. Or perhaps you know someone from school who was hardworking and diligent back then, and now they're doing great in their career, so you try to recruit that person. But essentially, the people who are applying for jobs on average aren't going to be particularly good. That's important to realize. It. They don't have a job. If they were so good, maybe they'd have a job, right? Or the offers would be coming their way. So if you're going to go the job application route, you need a lot of applications, definitely hundreds, preferably maybe over 1,000, to find this like exceptionally good person for the job. Or better yet, go and recruit people proactively because you know either their personality and their talents so well from other experiences, or you know that they're absolutely kicking ass at what they are doing right now, and then you try to win them over through your vision by saying how much better and more exciting it's going to be to work here to build a better future and so on. And working with big people, with great people makes all the difference. If you have an average team, then you can be the best manager, but they're still going to do average work.
Okay, thank you. Tell us about your current lifestyle. How much do you work per week, and have you achieved this magical freedom-based lifestyle you always wanted to have?
Thankfully, I don't have to work as long hours as I did for many years. So I tend to wake up pretty late and then go do a workout and do some other things, and then I actually start working in the afternoon. But at this point in my career, a lot of my work is just getting on calls with other people, and when I can, I try to make these walking meetings. So I'll put on AirPods and I'll just walk around the city and be on a call with people and try not to look at the screen, because a lot of looking at the screen is just wears down your eyes eventually. I don't have to work as much as I once did, and a big mindset shift for me relatively recently was that I realized that if the company is to work well, I shouldn't be doing anything myself other than meeting with people, talking about the key projects, checking in on the progress, providing some feedback, some training, some guidance. But I really try to stick to the idea that I don't do any of the actual work myself, and it took me many years to get there. But that's there comes a time in a company's journey where it's important that you do this. And early on, if it's a solopreneur or maybe you have a small team, you might very well end up doing everything for a while. And it's good at the start, but it develops the wrong kind of habit, because for a business to be successful, for it to be scalable, and for that whole thing to be sustainable, it can't all depend on one person. Because what if you get sick? What if you want to go on vacation? What if you burn out, which is going to happen if you do everything? You are going to burn out if you do everything. And ultimately, what tends to happen is, even if none of these things happen, then you still become the bottleneck of progress. So for a long time, for many years actually, I was the best person in the company at marketing. And because of that, I was like, oh, marketing is so important, let me do it. But then I'd get overwhelmed by problems or by other tasks or by whatever, And then actually, because marketing was my biggest strength, in a sense, it became a bit of a weakness for a company. Not because I didn't know how to do it, but because my capacity wasn't sufficient, because I hadn't delegated it enough. Whereas other things like development or customer support that I didn't know how to do, those were running perfectly because I wasn't involved. And at some point I realized that actually everything works better if I'm not involved. It's a funny thing to say, and it was a bit humbling because I was like, well, really, like the moment I get out of something, it starts to work better. I was like, how is that? What is it that I do? But actually there are two things. Well, number one is that it was the capacity thing, because for the founder of the company, there are so many things I have to think about and worry about, and things like don't get done compared to having someone dedicated to that role. And the other thing is, if I am too deeply involved in projects directly, that is inevitably going to mean that the people around me, that they're going to start to kind of outsource some of their thinking to me, because he's the founder, he's been here the longest, he knows best. So I'm just going to ask him, or I'll let him do it, or I'll see what he would do. And then people actually, and they're just trying to do the right thing, they know, oh, he knows best, I'll ask him. But what this means is that they end up thinking less themselves, and they don't develop as much, and their incentive to work is actually lower. So the interesting thing about management is that if you give people more freedom, this is a tricky topic to talk about, but you want to give people a lot of freedom and responsibility, and freedom and responsibility go together. So if you give someone freedom over how they do their work, you have to also make sure that they understand the responsibility part of it. Because these two things together mean that they own the project, or that they own the outcome. They have the freedom to execute it how they think is right to execute it, and they have the responsibility for the outcome. And it's important that they understand that they have both. If they just think they have freedom, then nothing's going to get done, because, yeah, we're free. No, that's not how it works. They're free in how they achieve the outcome they're responsible for. And through that kind of a work model, it can be a bit scary for people at first, but they're on their own, and they have to make the right decisions. They have to learn, they have to do research. If they make a mistake, they own that mistake, because there are consequences for their mistake. But through this freedom and responsibility mindset, what happens is that the team grows, because it's on them. They get to make the decisions. They deal with the consequences of their decisions, and they're more motivated to do all of this because they know that they own the project, they own the outcome, and that is absolutely critical. Whereas if you kind of micromanage everything, or make all the decisions, or maybe check every post before it goes out, or whatever, you're not going to get the best of people. They're just going to execute. And they're going to execute in a way to please you, not in the best way to achieve the result. So that's very important. A great book on this is, I forgot the name of the book, but it's the Netflix book. I got the name, but it's by the founders of Netflix. We'll have to look this up and maybe put it under the video.
Okay, this was actually super insightful for me personally, because I'm also growing my team, and I intuitively feel these things that you're saying about delegating and all of that, but you made it more specific for me, so thank you. I think it's also valuable for others. Okay, and my last question for today is about your future plans. I really like how you said that you view your business now as a game, so what will be the game next?
Okay, I don't know if I'm going to do all of them, but there are several interesting ideas I'm thinking about. All right.
Which one to start?
So the first one is to continue growing the current business. And I still think if all goes well, then this year we're hoping to exceed 20 million in revenue, which would be a great milestone for us. And I think in a few years, we should be able to get it past 100 million. I think it's possible. There's some exciting developments, like we're talking to some of the biggest travel companies in the world about integrating our courses as a part of their travel offering, and those are the kind of companies everyone's familiar with. But the thing that kind of keeps me excited about this business is that it's one of the biggest markets in the world, because everyone has a smartphone, over 1 billion iPhones, and everyone takes pictures all the time. So that's quite exciting to me. At the same time, with all the developments in artificial intelligence, it's clear that everything's going to change very, very rapidly. And here, what we're trying to do is essentially stay relevant, because I do think that if we kind of look ahead into the future 5-10 years from now, I think people are going to be far less inclined to be learning anything, really. It's just the reality. We're going to get dumber and lazier. I mean, think about it. When people used to be in a great shape before all the work shifted from mechanical to intellectual, because then you stop using your body, and probably the same thing's going to happen to brain. But really, when you're taking pictures with the phone, like, you have a computer in your hands, and wouldn't it make sense if the computer was able to give you feedback or tips on how to improve in real time? So instead of me teaching people in a video how to change some settings, the camera should just change the settings itself, because it knows, and it should be looking all around all the time, and it could tell you, hey, take a couple of steps to the left, or get lower, or get closer to your subject. And I think the kind of experience we're hoping to create over the next several years, hopefully, is that you essentially have this photography teacher always with you, and you don't have to sit at home and take a course, which feels like work to people. That you can just get your phone out and it tells you exactly what to do. So we're hoping to get to that. And in a world like that, what's the point of taking an online course? There's no point, because the teacher is always there, always with you. It's just like, let's say if you were going out to shoot and you had an amazing photographer always there with you, just looking over your shoulder and giving tips. So we're hoping to get to that level of interactivity. Then there are a couple of other ideas. I'm thinking about acquiring a part of a guitar training business. So I'm actually coaching them at the moment, and I'm trying to see how quickly the business can scale, and if the developments are favorable, then I'll potentially be acquiring half of that business. And there's another kind of crazy idea that we just started brainstorming, and I don't know for a fact if we're going to do it, but obviously with all the AI advancements these days, particularly Midjourney, which is the tool that's responsible for all those Pope pictures in the hip hop clothing and so on. When you look at this, you start to think about, okay, what value is there in a photographer's job and so on, and pretty much today with today's technology, you can create exceptionally good, high quality artistic imagery out of a text-based prompt. So that's interesting. That changes a lot of things, right? And so one of the kind of technologies we're hoping to play with and potentially build out and scale is essentially a technology that would completely eliminate the commercial photo shoot industry. So the idea is that let's say how commercial or advertising or fashion photography happens is that you rent a location, there's someone organizing the whole thing, then a lighting expert comes in, then there are models flown in from who knows where, a stylist comes, there's like a makeup artist. It's just like this big team and very expensive, slow, difficult process to get those beautiful images we see in magazines and ads and so on. So we think there's a much easier way to do that, and it's pretty clear that this is going to be the future. So the future would be where instead of doing all of this, we'd simply scan the body of a model and put her in an outfit, and all of that would be done digitally, and the same quality or better could be achieved without any of those physical production complexities. So we're looking into how we can try to make that technologically possible, but we're definitely not the only ones. So I don't know if this is going to come true, but it's something we're very excited about because of the huge disruption potential in that.
Sounds exciting.
It
A lot
is
of
exciting.
plans. I love how you didn't lose the spark and passion for your business and continue to create like really huge projects. That's very inspiring.
It's interesting, and with a business, yes, there's like a lot of responsibility and stress, but there's also the ability to express yourself creatively in a creative way, because like I love photography, and the thought of being able to contribute in such a meaningful way and to make amazing images that we personally love out of this, that's just really exciting. And yes, the byproduct of this could be a lot of money if it's successful, or we could lose a lot of money, which is equally possible. But it's the idea that excites me, and that's just a fortunate side effect of working at a higher level, is that I can actually afford to dream bigger in a sense, and I guess that's what motivates me to keep going as well. It's not just the money or the success, but really the ability to use business as a tool of self-expression of crazy ideas like this.
Amazing. Okay, so before we finish, one last thing. So thank you for giving the opportunity to win one of your course. Which one are you?
Let's do iPhone Photo Academy.
iPhone Photo Academy, the main one, yeah?
Yeah.
So 2 people have the opportunity to win free access to iPhone Photography Academy. All you need to do is share this YouTube interview to your Instagram stories, tag me, Emils, and also write in the comment below this video that you're participating. And from those who do it, we will pick 2 winners.
Should we do 5?
Let's do 5.
Let's do 5.
I love this. Okay, let's do 5. Amazing. Okay, thank you so much for participating. It was an honor, and as always, very inspiring for me personally. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I admire what you do, and I'm very happy I could participate.